Hi, welcome to our course on relationships and families, marriages, all this good stuff. I want to take a few minutes in our first week to introduce just a little bit of a couple of general concepts to prepare you for all the work that we'll be doing in this class. So, the first one is the 5 general standards of critical thinking, because a huge part of sociology, and I'm hoping if you're enrolled in this class that you've taken Introduction to Sociology sometime in the past. But even if you haven't, it'll be okay. Sociology, just in case you haven't taken it before, because a lot of times people are like, so we have psychology, and then what's sociology? Sociology is looking at societal phenomenon, institutions such as the family, what we'll be studying in this class, the education institution, the religion as an institution, government, the way that all these large scale institutions impact us on numerous levels, us as individuals. So many times we think that we are just independently making decisions in life and are being shaped by, kind of our own beliefs and understanding of the world, when in fact society has an inordinate amount of control over how we perceive the world, how we act in the world, and so on and so forth. So that's just a little mini introduction to what sociology is. But critical thinking, as I was saying, is a huge, huge part of sociological thinking, because you have to constantly be analytical and problem solving and being on the lookout for what might be like it's everything in sociology is right in front of our face. Like we know it, we live it, but at the same time, we don't spend a lot of time thinking about it, and especially critically thinking about it. So, 5 general standards of critical thinking. And by the way, if you've taken a critical thinking course at Santiago Canyon College, this is actually coming from critical thinking course by Marcelo Pimentel, which I took as a student, about a dozen years ago, and is just a great way of analyzing the world and challenging yourself to be an excellent thinker. So, first thing you need to do is be clear, which I don't feel like I'm being very clear right now, because I kind of am jumping around a little bit. I'm not doing a very good job of being um, a critical, I guess, communicator in this situation. Clarity, when you think about it, a lot of times our thinking is very muddled, our expression is very muddled, and or just vague, right? We're not very specific. An example I can give you about this is when I have classes in person, we invest some time together at the beginning of class talking about learning together. So what are the best things that instructors can do to help you learn? What are the best things you can do with your classmates? What are the best things you can do on your own to help you be a successful learner? Well, students will say for themselves, like what they can do for themselves to be a successful learner. Don't procrastinate. Now, I know you know what procrastinate means, but it's kind of vague when you think about it. Like, what the heck does it actually mean? What does it mean to not procrastinate? So that's my example of thinking through what you really mean and making sure that you're being clear when you're communicating that, whether it's through writing with essays or any level of communication. Next, speaking of essays, our title for our essays in this class, the assignment in this class, is reflective essays, and that's coming from critical thinking. So reflective means thinking about why you think what you think. I think sometimes they call it metacognition or something, but I am not an expert in that field. But this idea of really analyzing your thought process, so incredibly valuable when it comes to relationships and families, because here we have lived so much life. So many of you know so much about relationships and families from all of your experiences, but how much have you really thought about why you think what you think in relation to dating, in relation to living together, in relation to marriages lasting a long time, in relation to how work is divided up between family members when like toilets need to be scrubbed. Like it goes on and on. So when I'm asking you to write reflective essays, what I'm asking you to do is think about why you think what you think and really challenge yourself to interrogate yourself and think, where did I get these ideas from? Next is fairness. The idea of Distribution of resources, that's something we'll be talking about in relation to families and inequalities about on the back end of the course, in the second half of the course. Um, I think that that's a big time where fairness comes up when some people have more than others in society. And is that fair? And the opportunities that we receive. And in a lot of cases, in relation to fairness with families, I think we probably treat each other within our families on a micro level, right? A lot of sociology is on a macro level where it's looking at society all together in this large scale manner. But in a micro sense, and if you think about in relation to interactions that families have, like a lot of times we probably in our relationships, our interpersonal relationships, aren't terribly fair with each other. And so thinking for yourself how you define fairness and how to be fair to others is a really important component of critical thinking. Okay, couple more. Being systematic. So that means being organized. You can see the image with the two brains, and you've got all the squiggly lines on one side, and you've got it all neatly organized on the other side. So it means flowing from A to B to C, to staying organized in your thinking. I was kind of joking that I'm not being very clear in my communication because I'm jumping around a little bit. So I'm definitely not being systematic, right? It's because I'm kind of going through this, but then jumping a little bit to something else and then going back. So really trying to be exceptionally organized. And then finally, logical. Now, logical means being um, as opposed to looking at things subjectively, being an objective thinker, right? Stepping back as almost an outsider, not getting emotionally involved and not thinking about how you feel in a situation, rather what the facts are, right? And stepping back. Now, a lot of times in academia, logic is exceptionally important, undeniably, but also there's argumentation for the fact that emotional thinking really can have some value. And so I don't necessarily always just value that kind of logical, objective, distant thinking. And especially when it comes to our interactions with and beliefs and experiences with our families, there's an inordinate amount of emotion there. And so, kind of balancing between the emotions that we feel that we've experienced that are very strong and very true, and then also, again, kind of challenging ourselves to step back from that and maybe remove the emotion to see if we can see the situations that we have been in a different way. Okay, the other thing I want to share, the other three things I want to share with you, because here's the 5 general standards of critical thinking. Next is a few different things, three, to keep in mind when we're studying sociology. First of all, never assume anything. So you've heard the joke, right? What does it mean to assume? It means to make an ass out of you and me, because you can see, there you go. If you haven't heard that before, I know I'm the funniest person ever. Assumptions, right? We constantly make them and think that we know what something is when we might not really have thought it through. And so a lot of sociology is breaking down what we have not really challenged and what we have taken for granted and where we have gotten the information. Our families teach us so much, so very much. And some of it is absolutely wonderful, serves us well, helps us help others. Great stuff. Some of it's problematic, right? And so, kind of thinking through like, what are the assumptions that our families have taught us, and really trying to make sure that we, again, are logical and clear and fair and everything else, and try not to just have those instantaneous reactions without a lot of clear thought. Next, it can be tricky with sociology because sociology challenges our paradigms, the way that we see the world, the way that we see knowledge creation and everything else, because we're constantly now, as we've lived our lives and have gone through and experienced everything and have expertise in what we've experienced because we know it, what we have experienced and what we think based upon those experiences might not necessarily be correct for everyone. Maybe it means it's correct for you, but it might not be correct for everyone. It might not be fair to everyone. And so, a lot of times, this can happen when we talk about inequalities, things like social privilege, when you, by virtue of some part of your identity, have abilities or resources that other people don't have based upon their identity. An example might be if you have able bodied privilege, that you are not grappling with a disability that impacts your mobility, that you can navigate and walk far and go upstairs and do all of these things. And you're going to kind of make, again, assumptions that everybody can do this, right? Because you can do it. So thinking about other people struggling with it is not something in your forefront of understanding because you're not grappling with it. Now, maybe for some of you, myself included, you have somebody in your family who does have mobility challenges, getting around and things. My mom's getting older and is struggling with that more and more. And so I do have more of an awareness of it. But at the same time, that idea of the fact that a lot of times what we have experienced in life doesn't necessarily put us in a place to truly be correct about what everybody's experienced in life. So, part of sociology is kind of getting comfortable with the fact that we kind of step on others' toes and need to make sure that we learn how not to do that. And then finally, I think the most important part of sociology is being like the perpetual 3-year-old that's always going, but why? Why? Why is the sky blue? Why do dogs have tails? Why all of these different things? Like, ask questions of yourself, ask even more questions, ask all the questions. That's one of the things that I think is just so important, to constantly be trying to think through and challenge ourselves in the way of asking more. Ask how, ask why, ask what, and just continue to really interrogate what you already know. Okay, I've rambled on enough for this, and I wanted to make sure that you just kind of had these core ideas in mind as we start to go through dating and relationship formation and all the various things that we'll be doing in this class that I'm really, really looking forward to.